And that's been out in the board packet, and it's been provided publicly for people to review. And the big thing about that Title IX policy is, I know the board had addressed that maybe a year or two ago when there were some changes to federal law and administrative rule there. And since that time, things have kind of evolved, and we've gotten some additional guidance on that that came in the form of training that the administrative staff went through.
I think it says board policy AC in a couple different places in that document.
Yeah,
I just don't know what that is.
Is that like a cross-reference?
It is. It addresses the board policy that's currently in place.
So probably just have the highlight come off though if
Right,
it's gonna be
correct.
printed. Okay, I was just making sure.
Make a motion to approve Title IX policy.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This agreement for fiscal year 2023 with General Peters.
The fee is $8,000 and it's been like that for about 5 years, so I would recommend approval of the food service agreement with Janelle Peterson.
I'll make a motion to approve the food service agreement with Janelle.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Approving the LDEA negotiated agreement. I guess we can should we take all three of those together?
I think so. And those were in the packet. Does anybody have any questions on where those landed?
Make a motion to approve the EF and G, the negotiated agreements with confidential classified administration.
Second. Motion is second. Is there any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Reviewing the surplus list.
That was given to the board members for review. Do you have any questions over it? And one thing, it gets to be a pretty extensive list, and we have that just give kind of the public an idea of what we're up to here. And that list, if anybody requests to see that, can be made available to you, but also go out and be posted publicly next month. Just kind of trying to refine the process a little bit here. With that auction in July, we're trying to get that surplus list for review a couple months ahead of time, so that if there are any surprises or anything on there that might be controversial, we just have a chance to look at that. And so you've got it for review a month ahead of time. Next month it'll be up for approval. The public will have a chance to look at it. And then the auction will be in July, so we'll still have a little time there.
Do we have a date in July?
I haven't set the date up yet, but planning on doing that in the end of May, so.
Thank you.
Looked like the list had basically the same thing we do.
Didn't have any 100-year-old pianos on there.
No.
Is there any other questions? All right, then we will move on to board resolution first reading.
And
Skip to this, or?
I will just briefly, and I might call on our attorney Tim Johns to kind of fill in where I might be missing a little. And this resolution is very similar in wording to the governor's executive order. And really, it's kind of one of those things, and I think that's up for debate with the board, whether it's necessary or not, to be presented as an option. The executive order, my understanding is that that has the force of law, correct, Tim?
It does, but it's addressed to the Department of Education, not to any local school district.
Yeah. So anyway, the school people all kind of said, I don't know that this bill is necessary because we're not doing that. We're not teaching these divisive concepts. And this resolution kind of speaks to what we're doing in the classroom, and it's kind of, if the board would choose to adopt it next month, it's basically saying, in my opinion, this is kind of a non-issue for us. We don't do these things, not a big deal, so fine, we'll comply with that. Am I oversimplifying it, or?
No, I think you're hitting it right on the point.
So, if it's something that the board is not comfortable with, however, I don't think that has been an issue in our district. And, I don't know, it'd be up to the board, so, whether you think that's necessary to make that statement that here we are or not.
Discussion, does anybody have questions? Okay, at this point,
I'm curious to know if other districts locally have passed this resolution yet.
Are you aware of that?
No, I'm not.
I guess that would be a question that I'd like answered at the next meeting, if we could just look into it.
Sure.
You know, what our other local districts have done.
any other thoughts or questions?
I don't know if we need to go that far, take that step at this time. I don't find it necessary. It's my opinion.
Okay. I think there's lots of opinions on this, and I think there's a lot of you that are interested in this part too. We definitely will take your input on it, so we're open to that input as well, either now or in emails after the meeting. Again, I think it's basically in the executive order, it's law. I don't know that it's necessary either, but we will listen to what you guys want to do on that.
During the public forum.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
sorry, were you taking comments?
No, we're gonna do that during the public forum.
Okay.
If we could just have everyone speak a little bit louder, it's really hard to hear in the back of the room. And so, if you could do that, that would be greatly appreciated.
I'll try to put my teacher voice on. I don't have a teacher voice. Okay, so
Be
we're,
careful what you wish for.
we have no more discussion on that. We will move on to K, which is the classroom displays and decorations policy, first reading.
And I would really like the board, individual board members to comment on this, but I will give a little bit of a preamble. I'll try and speak up a little bit, kind of where this is coming from, because I think some people are wondering, why are we talking about this? Where is this coming from? And it's, unfortunately, this topic is not something that is completely unique to our school district or even our state. Across the country, these things are starting to percolate and become quite an issue. And there has not been a lot of resolution on the proper way to handle this across the country. It has not gone through the court systems. We don't have a ruling from the Supreme Court that we can follow and say, here you go. And so to give just a little bit of background of where this came from, we're just gonna call it like it is. We have had this controversy in our school district. I think anybody that denies that, that has been privy to the facts, just is not being truthful. It has been controversial, and it started out with some signs that said safe space with a rainbow on that. And so what's been very difficult about this, I think we can all get behind the idea of a safe space for all kids. I think every educator, and I believe this, every educator we have in this district cares about kids and wants what's best for kids. I really believe that. And I think where things go off the rails a little bit is we don't all agree on what that means, on what is best for kids. And one of the issues that we have is that teachers have First Amendment rights to an extent. And we all know that those First Amendment rights have some limitations. But the devil is in the details on where that line should be. And this is where we've had a lot of dissension and division among our staff over these things. And I know it's been very difficult. It's been difficult for our teachers. Like I said, it's been divisive. And it's been difficult for us as administrators. It's been difficult for our board. And I know the pressure that I've been under is that people on both sides kind of wonder, well, what's wrong with you? Why don't you just put your foot down and say this is the way it is? So the people who want the safe space signs, and I'm sure we'll hear from people on the value in those signs and what the message is for kids with that. But the issue is that we don't know where that line is on how far our free speech rights go and what limits there are. So for instance, if we allow those safe space signs and people object to those, and we say, well, we don't, in absence of a policy, the next thing that comes up, say for instance if it's a Confederate flag, and I'm not equating the two by any means, I'm just using as kind of an example. I think that's probably something that we would say, yeah, we're not going to have that in the classroom. We're just doesn't really have any place here. Well, you allow this, but you won't allow this. And then we're into a situation where we're discriminating by viewpoint. Likewise, the other side in this debate would like us to just say, hey, it's pretty simple. Just tell them take those signs down. Well, in absence of a policy, we have not, as an administration, felt that it was appropriate to silence that expression by our teachers, by our staff. Because they're not violating any school policy, they're not violating any law, and so that gets really picky when you pick out a particular viewpoint and say, I don't like this viewpoint, or somebody doesn't like this viewpoint, so this thing has to change. So, I don't know if I'm articulating this very well, but the attempt with this policy is to address it in a way, granted it's not gonna make everybody happy, but to address it in a way that is viewpoint neutral. I think that's the important thing we have to keep in mind, and it's my job to try and ultimately it's gonna be the board's decision whether we have a policy, what that policy will be, and that kind of thing. But it's my job to help guide that decision in a way that's gonna be legally sound. And so I've consulted with numerous attorneys, our school attorney, Tim Johns, and if board members want to hear from him, I think he would speak to this as well. But also a couple of others, and also studied some cases that are playing their way out in other school districts across the country. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot of precedent right here in South Dakota, but we know what the climate is like in South Dakota. And so I think that we would be remiss in ignoring that. But it's really unfortunate because I feel some of the comments that I've heard are that this policy is targeting certain students and that it is exclusive and it's out to hurt people, and that's really not the intent. And I think that's why it's a big decision the board has in front of them here. But if you read the policy, as it's stated now, may or may not be the final version, and there may or may not be a final version. But the attempt here is to be viewpoint neutral. And it's gonna be unfortunate because there are gonna be some other things that if we adopt this, we will not be able to allow. But, and I would also note that we are not going in taking down signs between now and whenever we have a policy adopted. Because we don't have a policy that directs us to do that. So that's why people have not gotten that immediate satisfaction, because there hasn't been any violation of the policy. So anyway, I'm starting to ramble now. So board members,
Have comments?
Well, I'd like to hear from Mr. Johns as far as I know this was drafted, to be able to withstand any challenges or potential challenges that we might have. I'd kind of like to hear, what that viewpoint is.
Well, I think anything that you see in a school that's presented to the children should be based upon approved curriculum and content standards, and that's the whole idea here. It's not a place for social issues to be presented necessarily, except in a particular course that would be designed for specifically that. And as it was stated, we don't want to discriminate by viewpoint, and this is neutral, and I think it's really a good policy that was drafted by your superintendent. And I think it really gets to the point, and I don't know what else you can really say. It's short, it's simple, but we need guidelines, and that's what this stuff provides.
Comments or discussion at this time?
I'm personally looking forward to hearing from everybody that wants to speak before I make any final decisions about the policy, so I don't really want to say anything other than I'm open to hearing from everyone before I would even make a decision.
Yeah, I think it's important just to reiterate that today's the first reading. There was no, we're here to, that's why we're having this meeting. I mean, I like seeing people here. I think it's great that we have this. We don't see that very often. And I guess for my own personal, I did tell Eric that I would let people know I have been reached out personally from many people in the community that are sitting in this room. With anything, I think it's important that we always note if someone reaches out to us and not maybe, like I had plenty that reached out just to me personally, but didn't reach out to the rest of the board members. I responded to them, telling them to please respond to everybody, because it's important that we all know the same thing. I guess, I don't know, Eric, you can answer this, or Tim, maybe you can. I would like to read a list of who I heard from, because I wanna make sure it's very clear that I did have discussion with them, but I don't know if this is the time to do that.
I'm gonna say that it's really important that you adopt some sort of a policy, so that we do have a policy. Otherwise, any decision made by the administration can be considered to be arbitrary and unreasonable. So we've gotta get somewhere with it. So whether you wanna adopt this one or a different one, we gotta have a policy.
Is it appropriate to put into the record, per se, people that have contacted us by email and whatnot before now, or do we wait until the second reading to do so?
I think I would wait to the second reading if that's
That
your
was just a
concern.
question I had.
I mean, you can put in the record, and you can invite people to present their positions on this in writing as well. I think that would be beneficial for the members of the board. And then you're gonna be able to avoid a lot of redundancy. If we're gonna get everybody up here speaking on it, we're gonna hear the same thing over and over and over again. And the last thing I ever did when I was on the bench is wanted to plow that field twice, so let's keep it to the point.
Yeah.
And I think that can be done here.
Yep, and that's all I request. I know I talked to a number of people in the room today is, don't just reach out to one board member, do it jointly. All of our contact information is available on the website. I shared that with a number of people. I was surprised at how many people didn't do their own research first. All of us are available publicly. You go to the Lead-Deadwood School District website, all of our email addresses are there. So I think that's important, because I was really surprised on how many people sent me a personal text, which is fine, but I think it's important that that information goes to everybody, not just one individual person. So please do that. I know some of you guys did share between now and then, but that's kind of all I have. I guess I don't have anything particularly other than that.
I guess I'll just reiterate that I'm looking forward to your comments. I've received multiple emails and I appreciate that, and I know some people don't like to speak in public. Please send us an email. This is an important thing. We are here to represent the taxpayers, the students, the teachers, the parents. We represent you, not just what our personal opinions are. So we need to hear from you guys to know how we should proceed.
And I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. Please do your own research. I was really disappointed in a lot of the stuff I read on Facebook. And I think I expect better out of the people in our community altogether on both sides. So that's what I noticed a lot, and it was a lot of heartache in our community that I don't think needed to be there. So I just, Facebook isn't a place to have this room. What I see here is a good spot to do it, but it was really disappointing to see that because nobody bothered to ask appropriate questions. Instead, they put stuff out there not knowing all the facts, and that was disappointing.
I would reiterate too, this is not an issue that we have sought out. This landed in our laps, and people have not let it go. And so here we are. And like I said, my personal viewpoints, hopefully you don't know what they are, but my personal viewpoints don't matter. I need to carry out the will of the board and try and direct it in a way that we can defend, in a way that's gonna put us on solid legal ground. And that's where, I know this gets to be a passionate issue. And again, I would remind everybody that, I think people are coming from a good place, we don't all agree on the way the world should be, so.
All right, if there's no more comments, then we will take your comments during the public forum, so. We will move on to the online transfer of credits policy, which is the first reading as well.
This is that same policy that we put out just as a discussion item back in February. And basically, you can see it references codified law 133320 and 133329. And basically, it just kind of clarifies, because we've had a lot of people choosing to homeschool during the pandemic, especially, which is great. We really respect that decision that people make. But then it becomes an issue sometimes when people want to come back to the public school and they want to transfer the credits in that they took. And so what is the body that we're going to recognize as far as approving those credits, putting them on the transcript? And so the policy is kind of right in line with state law, talking about recognizing online credits that are approved by the South Dakota Virtual School. So, and there are a number of options available within that umbrella, but that's basically what that is, just so that people know. And I thought it was important to do this earlier rather than later. So if you have a kid, maybe that's like a freshman or sophomore right now, they're homeschooling, we should get this policy out there so you can see it, so that it's not like second semester senior year they want to re-enroll and they've got all these credits and like, well, I'm sorry, we can't take those. So I kind of wanted it to be a public thing and people know where they stand sooner rather than later, because we don't want people to be in a bad spot that way.
Does anybody have any questions on that, comments? All right, then we will move on to the re-enrollment policy, first reading.
And that, kind of the same thing, deals with the kind of the same issue, but it's a little more, deals a little more specifically with when they come back from homeschool, re-enroll at Lead-Deadwood School District. One change that I think we are going to have before it's adopted, and that is in the second paragraph, students re-enrolling in the same semester they intend to graduate must be enrolled on or before the third Friday of the semester. I think we're gonna change that verbiage in the final version to the last Friday of the semester, and that would be more in line with state statute. It says the last Friday in January, for instance, so. Any questions on that one?
Just as long as that information is readily available to students that are in or out of enrollment.
It is.
So that they know ahead of time what they need to do.
It can be a little tricky notifying the kids that are homeschooling,
Right.
because they don't read our handbook, for instance. I mean, it's kind of tricky, and we're not supposed to be contacting them, or, if they're homeschooling, public school is supposed to let them do that. We're not gonna harass them.
But they can find this
Yes.
if they wanna re-enroll into our website. they
Yep,
can find this.
it'll be available, I'm just saying that
Perfect.
I can't track down every homeschool kid.
No, just as long as it's there when they want.
Okay, good.
Any other questions? Alright, so we will move on to patrons and others, and Gwen Hess has asked to be on the agenda for that. So, Gwen, if you wanna. And during the public forum, we're gonna kind of limit everyone speaking to like 3 minutes, because we wanna get as many people in to talk as possible, so. Go ahead, Gwen.
Hello. So I'm Gwen Hess. I know many of you. I've worked with you. I've been teacher to your kids. I've been in the community 10 years now. Tonight, I didn't expect to get to this point, honestly, but I'm kind of going to give you a backstory. And the last 10 years that people have known me, I'm still that same person. You probably had no idea what position I took, because that's what I believe an educator should do, and also a good person. And so I think many of you might even be surprised, because I don't freely speak about my personal opinions, especially when I'm around kids. And so I'm just coming at that. I still would love to have relationships with every single person here. And so, anyway, I'm very nervous too. So today I'm speaking not just as a concerned parent, but also as a current 4th grade teacher, a taxpayer, a community member, and a voter. There are not many people that can say that they wear all these hats at the same time. It gives me a little broader perspective than most. As an employee of the district, I want to see our schools and students thrive. As a parent, I want children to have a safe school where they can focus on learning and the fundamentals of reading, math, science, and social studies. Their education should not be sidetracked by social drama. Our schools should be a place where every child is treated fairly, no matter what race, religion, gender, age, or background. As a taxpayer, I would like to know that the thousands of dollars that I'm required to pay are being used wisely, and that the main goal of our schools is to create the best learning environment possible for our kids. Our money should be used to accomplish the mission of the school, which is our students will graduate equipped with the skills to be successful and responsible citizens. As citizens of the United States, our students should be honoring the ideals presented in the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Teachers and staff should be treating every student equally. Students shouldn't receive special treatment because a school employee decides that certain students' rights are more important than other students' rights. According to the South Dakota Department of Ed's Teachers Code of Ethics, teachers and administration should grant just and equitable treatment to every student, regardless of race, color, creed, sex, sexual preference, age, marital status, handicapping condition, national origin, or ethnic background. Our students should also respect each other's differences and also take responsibility for their actions when they discriminate against others. Especially in our schools, every student should be treated as a valuable asset, as a citizen that needs a well-rounded education and does not leave them with a narrow or biased point of view. The First Amendment in the Bill of Rights says, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for the redress of grievances.
When I interrupt, it's been 3 minutes, so I'll let you kind of just
Okay?
wrap up, so you know.
Okay, I didn't realize that was for me. Nobody, so that's.
Yeah, but you can finish up, just go ahead and
Okay.
finish up.
Okay.
Just-
So our public education system is a powerful tool in our society. We should not be infringing on our students' freedoms as stated in the First Amendment. So can I read? I got a little ways to go.
I'd like to hear all of it. And I think this is different than the public forum, because you said during the public forum it'd be 3 minutes, you did not give that.
Okay.
I'll try to be quick. Okay. As paid public school employees, we should not take sides when it comes to religion or speech. We should expect there will be differences and enforce policies that respect those differences. Our schools should not be a platform for paid staff to show their personal beliefs and political affiliations. Our schools should be neutral and welcoming to all students. If a student knows each side of a controversial issue or knows which side a staff member supports from their experience in school, then that teacher or staff member should question if they're following the code of ethics. According to the code of ethics, teachers should present subject matter for which they bear responsibility without deliberate suppression or distortion. As teachers, we are hired to teach what is approved by the school board and administration. If we are teaching other subjects without approval, then we are not following these codes. The public school is a business that serves the entire community. Employees are expected to honor certain limitations when dealing with our most valuable citizens, which are our children. Every child is important. Every child should be treated as valuable and worthwhile. Every child should be honored with respect and integrity. Our children do require protection. Our children have a right to public education without discrimination. Our children deserve and need their parents' involvement for their safety and for their success. Our schools should be free from political and religious propaganda. There should not be Trump flags or Biden flags. There should not be Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter propaganda. There should not be pro-choice or pro-life posters. There should not be Buddhist statues or crucifixes. There should not be gay pride flags or straight pride flags. Students should not be forced to accept one side or another on a controversial issues such as these. Their education on provocative topics should be age appropriate and approved by their parents. Parents are the #1 factor when it comes to student success. And that's the reason I'm here right now. I want my kids to know that they can stand up for what they believe in. They do not have to bow to peer pressure or stay silenced by intimidation. Thankfully, I have respectful, hardworking, and kind kids. That's how I raised them to be. I hope that this will help them stand up for what is just and fair. As a parent, I have faced a lot of challenges over the last 10 years in the Lead-Deadwood School District. I can confidently say that I've done my best as a parent. Not perfect, but I take responsibility for every word and action that I've taken. Last year, my child was bullied and lost friends and didn't want to keep coming to school. I contacted the school about these situations, but I still had serious concerns about the welfare of my own child. So when I came to open house this fall, I started to ask questions about the controversial propaganda that I noticed hanging up around the school. When I respectfully raised concerns about why staff are displaying political flags, phone numbers to political activist groups, and controversial symbols in our schools, my concerns were ignored. After hearing about gay pride flags being passed out to students by staff during homecoming week, I asked for a meeting with administration. During the meeting, I again shared my concerns about political propaganda in the schools. One of the staff members told me that your children are not at risk. So the request to take those symbols down is not fair to the others. And if you've ever had a kid that struggled, for somebody to say that is not fair. Then I shared that my child was peer pressured to be gay by classmates. This happened repeatedly, and she did not feel safe to talk to staff at the school because they openly sided with the LGBTQ community. Still, the propaganda was allowed in the schools. After that confidential meeting, my private conversations as a parent with school staff were shared with other staff in the elementary school without my permission. Then in March, more controversial displays were hung around the elementary school. So this isn't where it started. As a teacher, when I asked questions, I was immediately told that I might lose my teaching license because I could be violating the teacher code of ethics. Even though there was not a clear violation for voicing my concerns, I was brushed off with answers like middle students, or it's what the South Dakota Department of Ed said to do. None of those answers really helped me or my kids feel safe or respected. When I researched each of those answers, none of them actually were accurate. And now this was in the elementary school. Neither suicide or sex education is age appropriate. Even after I explained this to administration, the propaganda and indoctrination continues to happen in our schools. And this is just the short version of what took place this year. There are many other stories where my children and others have felt their rights were ignored, and it's not just this year. It's been many years. I can genuinely say that I work with some of the most amazing people that I've ever met. I can even say that about those who disagree with me. It was never my intention to bring more division in our schools, especially with the stress of COVID and everyday teaching. I truly care about my fellow coworkers. But the way this was handled throughout this year and the years before, this year did not help the situation. From the beginning of the year, my main goal has been to keep schools safe for everyone. First, it started as a mother advocating for my own children, then it turned into a policy issue that was not being addressed. This is not fair to my kids or anyone's kids. Teachers should not be able to use their position of authority to persuade students into agreement with their own personal beliefs and opinions, especially about this divisive subject matter. Teachers should be neutral when it comes to religious or political issues, and especially counselors should be neutral so that all students feel like they have a safe professional place to talk about sensitive issues like bullying, racism, mental health, and other emotional situations in their lives. When it comes to the LGBTQ, Lead-Deadwood students are expected to accept this trend in society as a moral truth, but is not in agreement with my personal values. Certain teachers and staff want students to not only show tolerance, but to fully accept and approve of this lifestyle. This kind of indoctrination should not be promoted in our schools, just like I would not expect your child to accept my beliefs or personal moral values. We should be able to send our students to school and trust they are in a safe environment. I wish I could confidently say that Lead-Deadwood is safe for all students. I can't. This is our time to make a change. It is time to build trust in our schools by being transparent and providing clear boundaries for school employees. Our students' religious values should be honored and not discriminated against. Our LGBTQ students should be respected and not discriminated against. Every student should be treated equally, no matter what race, color, creed, sex, sexual preference, age, marital status, handicapping condition, national origin, or ethnic background. My hope is that every student that attends Lead-Deadwood schools will know that they are important, that they're safe, and that they're respected, that their parents are well informed, and their concerns are heard. and that teachers are supported and unified. Let us be a good example for the next generation to follow.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, so we've now come to the public forum portion of this. We have about 26 people that have signed up that want to speak. We are going to limit you to 3 minutes. You signed up, but David Ruth is first on our list.
Yes, it pays to be early. Madam Chair, members of the school board, members of our community, I'm David R. Ruth Jr., lifelong resident and a Lead High School graduate. I'm urging you to seriously consider the decision that you have before you. A vote to restrict specific displays or to create a policy to do so is a demonstration of intolerance for any diversity and will have lasting impacts, not just for today's student population, but for generations to come. That was the brief statement that I prepared before the meeting. And as I sat here and listened to the advice given by legal counsel, I understand and appreciate the position he's in and the position that you're in, where you have to specifically try and facilitate a policy that is issue neutral, as possible. But as we started this meeting, I was once again reminded, as we all rose in unison, about the Pledge of Allegiance that so eloquently ends by stating, "with liberty and justice for all." And for that reason, I ask you to be very specific in your deliberations and mindful of our entire student population. Thank you.
Richard Eddy.
Good evening. Thank you, board, for this opportunity to speak. As she said, I'm Richard Eddy. I graduated here in 1975. I'm going to read this because there's some points here I do not want to miss. In 1970, Lead High School was awarded a prestigious honor of being named that year's Bellamy Award recipient for the state of South Dakota. I'd like to read a small excerpt from the national level award criteria for a school to even be considered for that award. The National Bellamy Award is presented to a deserving school that incorporated citizenship training, civic responsibility into their curriculum. The Bellamy Award became a symbol of an accomplished student body, distinguished alumni, proficient school faculty and administration, and a harmonious relationship between the school and its community. Yet here we are 52 years later in a discussion addressing bullying, racism, inclusion in the halls of the Bellamy awarded school system. I'm the product of a Lead-Deadwood school system. For personal and family reasons, my daughter and her family chose to move here with me and support my needs and have their children attend the Lead-Deadwood school system. Is racism, bigotry, its associated stigma what we want our students in this school to be known for? Should any student be afraid to attend class for fear of being attacked or hearing derogatory comments directed towards them? We're all better than this. That was my prepared statement. I'd like to add just a little bit. For anyone that thinks this is indoctrination or some sort of brainwashing, at some point, students in this school are going to leave these doors. They're going to step out into a world that they need to be ready for. If we don't educate our kids on racism, on what bigotry is, what they are going to see outside the bubble of what is Western South Dakota, you're setting them up for failure. A certain percentage of kids are going to go in the military. A certain percentage of kids are going to go on to a bigger school, bigger areas than this. If they're not ready to recognize racism for what it is, if they're not recognizing inclusion of all beliefs, sexual orientation, whatever we want to call it, we as a community are setting them up for failure. Thank you.
Next is Carrie Ruth.
Madam Chair, board members, thanks for allowing me to speak. I'm Carrie Ruth and I'm a Deadwood resident. And I just wanted to say that as I look at the policy before you, some things that concern me are terms like inherently divisive concepts, controversial, political, or a movement, because our LGBTQ+ kids are not any of those things. They are humans and they deserve and need our love and support. We know through research and studies that these students are at a disproportionately increased risk for depression and suicide. So they are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their peers. And increasing that risk is lack of access to affirming spaces. Only half of LGBTQ+ youth report that their school is affirming. And that research is from the Trevor Project. It consistently finds that these youth report lower rates of attempting suicide when they have access to affirming spaces. No one is trying to indoctrinate children. There's no gay agenda. We're simply trying to keep kids alive. Anyone that is opposed to that has no business in public education. Classrooms that aren't safe spaces for all do not belong in a public school. So I stand with the kids and I stand with the teachers that support them.
All right, Dana Schubauer.
I'll start by saying thank you for bearing with me for doing something that's very difficult for me. And also thank you for allowing me the time to speak to you guys today on why I believe it's important for educators like myself to post safe space signs in our classroom.
Would you please identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Dana Schubauer. I teach at the elementary school. All students who attend the Lead-Deadwood School District deserve to be free to learn and feel safe in their classrooms. There will be, from time to time, students who struggle, whether that be outside of our school or during the school day, that will not be sure where to look or who to talk to. After taking a suicide prevention course earlier this year, a staff member found an idea that was presented to them about placing signage up that so that students may see our classrooms as a safe space for themselves in times of distress. My goal for these signs in my own room is to show every single student who walks through my doors that this is a safe place to learn and grow. There is no political agenda that is attached to this sign, and its sole purpose is to show all students in our district how important they are to us as educators. Our school went through a process called the Comprehensive Needs Analysis, and our K-5 students took a survey. One of the statements on that survey was that I feel safe in my school. 76% of our K-5 students agreed, 18% were neutral, and 6% disagreed. That's 59 students of our 243 students that did not feel safe at our school. Another statement was that I feel like I belong at school. 61% agreed, 16 were neutral, 22% disagreed. That's 94 of 243 students that do not feel like they belong at our school. If a safe space sign helps even one single student to feel more included or more secure in knowing who to come to if they have a moment of stress or panic, it will be worth it. Nothing has changed in how I teach when I put up that sign. I showed up for my kids before, and I will show up for my students after this. I loved my kids for who they are before, and I'll love them for who they are after this. I met my students where they were before this, and I'll meet my students where they are after this. I've been here to teach the whole child without reserve before this, and I'll continue to teach the whole child without reserve after this. And I just again want to thank you for allowing us the time and the space to be heard. Chairperson, and esteemed members of the board. My name is De'Areth. I am a member of the Education and Support Committee of the Transformation Project, a South Dakota nonprofit whose mission is to support and empower transgender youth, young adults, and their families while educating the state and surrounding communities on gender identity and gender expression. I am also the proud parent of a former LDH student and who is a member of the LGBTQ+ community. When my child attended LDHS, they were constantly bullied because of this. A handful of teachers in this district promoted safe spaces in their classrooms and offices by posting affirming posters and statements. Without these safe spaces, my child would have had no place to go between classes, at lunch, and before and after school. We eventually transferred to another district because of the bullying. My child is now a very successful college student, mainly because of these safe spaces. Equality and inclusion are not hot button issues, but essential to the well-being of all students, regardless of race, creed, religious affiliation, sexual orientation, and gender identification. Not all teachers offer safe space for students, and it's crucial for a student to know if a particular teacher is accepting and affirming. Teachers are often fearful of losing their jobs if they speak up about issues related to LGBTQ+ students. Freedom of expression in the classroom should be just that. Forcing teachers to remove indications of safe spaces is a violation of that freedom of expression. LGBTQ students are bullied, harassed, and discriminated against every single day. Statistics show that 1 in 4 LGBTQ youth are asked to leave their homes when they come out. And estimates show that 1 LGBTQ youth between the ages of 13 and 24 attempts suicide every 45 seconds. As a parent who's had a child in this district who has been bullied because of their gender identity and sexual orientation, I want to encourage you as board members to understand what this policy would mean to students who are already very vulnerable, as well as possibly being a violation of some of the protections offered to them under Title IX. I ask that you work to put an end to a culture where staff don't feel like they can speak up for fear of retribution, and to stand up for these kids who are often marginalized. If our schools cannot be a safe place for all of our children, then we are failing. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name's Erin Atkins. I'm a budding clinical social worker, so thank you for having me today. I've been doing 2 years of internship down in Spearfish with a faith-based counseling office, and we are very short-staffed in our communities with mental health providers. Children need the opportunity to find safe places in schools and find out who can help them and who can find the proper resources. I second everything that the speakers before me have said, so I'm not going to bore you again with that. But I am going to go a little bit more personal. My children are biracial. My dad spoke to racism in the schools, and I hate having to do this. I disagree with the first speaker in that school is not a social place. School is a social place. This is where our kids come. We participate in athletics. We participate in activities. And this is where they learn how to deal with division, diversity, inclusion. Last week on Thursday, April 28th, I picked my daughter up from track meet. She gets in my pickup crying. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. Honey, you gotta tell me what's going on. A classmate, teammate told me, I'll put you back in the fields. What? Excuse me? Tell me more. We were playing a game called the name game. The name Hans came up. A student said, oh, isn't that German? Eddie's German. She did. She attended German school for 3 years. The next student says, no, Eddie's Hawaiian. You're right. She was born in Hawaii. And Eddie says, my daughter, no, actually I'm 25% black and the rest white. And the game continued. And at the end of the game, when her and her friend are throwing grass at each other and a couple boys, one of the boys tells her, nigger, stop. I'll put you back in the fields. I got the whole story only after I addressed her coaches with the issue of what she had told me. She wrote a statement. I was asked to take the statement to both the coaches, the athletic director, and the school principal. I went on a wild goose chase with my girlfriend to, you know, what we do in South Dakota, pick up our side of beef in Eureka. And halfway through the morning, I get a email response that says, this will be addressed Thursday morning. Great. By lunchtime, I get a text from my daughter, I want to go home. If you know my daughter, she loves school. She excels at academics, she excels at character, meaning she supports all of her students, all of the faculty, and she loves, I can't tell you how much she loves being in the building. I pick her up. My dad is at the VA. My son, I have to call out of class to walk the 100 yards across this parking lot to get my 8th grader out of this school because she's now been interviewed twice without my permission about this issue. She was interviewed in the morning and sent back into the building being bullied by one of the accused athletes who they lied. Humor me. Ginger, stop. Get back. I'll take you back to the field. That's what the student actually said. She's a redhead, so if you get the ginger joke, he didn't say nigger, he said redhead, he said ginger. So,
It's been 3 minutes,
3
I'll let
minutes.
you kind of wrap it up.
If our school can't protect a child whose civil rights are violated, how are they going to protect LGBTQ+ children who don't know who a safe adult in our buildings are? Some of you have shown your true colors, and we know where we stand. Students need to know where to go. Thank you.
Katrina Hutchinson.
I hope I don't go over what everyone else has said too, but my name is Katrina Hutchison, and I own Explore Fitness and Adventures and Explore Dance in Lead, South Dakota. And while I am a performer, I hate speaking in front of people too. So I just wanted to address the issue of the safe zone signs being divisive and being a political statement. And I really want to make sure we're talking about the safety and health of our youth and taking this very seriously. Please don't look me in the eye, I'm gonna cry. So I was the LGBT program manager with the Department of Agriculture for several years. I have served on the Black Hills Center for Equality Board, and I taught safe zone workshops across the Black Hills at Black Hills State University for resident advisors for many years. So it might be stuck up of me, but I consider myself an expert when it comes to safe zone trainings and the benefits they have for all students. LGBT youth and those perceived as LGBT, and I say perceived because we know what bullying is, because some people like to try to accuse other kids of what they are and aren't. They're at an increased risk of being bullied. Results from 2019 Youth Risk Behavior Survey show that nationwide, twice as many high school students who self-identify as lesbian, gay, or bisexual report having been bullied on school property in the past year than their straight peers. The study also showed that twice as many LGBT students than straight students reported not going to school because of safety concerns. The CDC's Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance results for 2019 show that many LGBT young people continue to suffer higher health and suicide risk than their peers. This follows the same trend present in the HRC, the Human Resource Campaign analysis of the 2015 and 2017 data. I don't need to bore you with all the statistics, you can Google it and find this, but LGBT students are more likely to experience victimization, violence, suicidal thoughts, suicidal plans, suicidal gestures, and suicidal attempts. 3 years ago, I lost one of my best friends to suicide. Yesterday, I spent the whole day crying about this. One of the simplest ways to combat these horrific statistics is to display a safe zone sign on your door or in an area that child can see. As a safe zone trainer, we taught that that was the most discreet, non-political, non-divisive, and simplest way to protect the health of our youth. Several research studies also show that these safe space campaigns, like anti-bullying policies, make a tremendous difference in LGBT students' perceptions that their schools are safe and that their teachers are adults they can trust. I want to hit on the Wessington Springs School Board and their decision that they made on safe zone training, saying that the entire school should be safe. But as we heard from one of the speakers individually, I don't feel that they're very safe for the LGBT community. So that is actually very false. I don't believe that the whole school is safe. I know many students that have been outed, not in this school district, so I won't blame this school district, but many students that have been outed by teachers and other people to their parents. And when they talk to an adult, a teacher that you automatically assume was safe, these students were ultimately kicked out of their homes, bullied, they were homeless because of this, because they were outed in the wrong way. So our school's main purpose is to keep children safe, and if you have your own opinion, your own political views, your own religious views, that's great. But if you are a safe space for these LGBT students, you can put a little sticker up, a sign to say that. A safe zone sticker on an educator's door just implies that they will challenge anti-LGBT language and harassment when it occurs, that they're open to the discussion of LGBT issues in the context of classwork or just in conversation, or that they just might be a safe person to whom an LGBT student could come out.
Katrina?
I have one more sentence,
Okay,
is that
that's
okay?
fine.
I'm almost done. Does it sound like I'm nervous? Bullying puts all youth at increased risk for depression, suicide, ideation, misuse of drugs and alcohol, experiencing sexual violence, engaging in unsafe sex practices, and can affect academics as well. This data underscores the need and urgency for youth-serving professionals to be well-equipped and to meet the needs of LGBT youth and all youth.
Courtney Crippen?
Good afternoon, members of the school board, faculty, members of our community. My name is Courtney Crippen. My family has been a part of the Lead-Deadwood School District for 10 years, and I've worked at the local hospital in the ER as a nurse for 8 years. I don't have a lot to say that hasn't already been said. It's kind of mind-blowing to me that we're arguing against something that is in place to help prevent suicide. The Department of Health in South Dakota in 2021 put up a report that listed South Dakota as the 8th highest suicide rate for the states. They also perform what's called like a youth risk behavior score, and it reported that 23% of high school students have considered suicide in our state, and around 12% have actually attempted it. So some quick math tells me that's about 75 kids in our high school. And that doesn't speak to middle school students, and that doesn't speak to elementary school students. And if you think that elementary school kids don't think about suicide or attempt suicide, I'll tell you right now, as an ER nurse in this community for 8 years, they do. So I just don't see the issue. If those signs can prevent that, can save lives, then they should stay there. Thank you.
Amanda Bender?
I'd like to thank the board and everyone for being here. It's good to see that a lot of people really care. I'm going to try to keep this short. It's helpful that there's been a lot of people that have already spoke to what I would say. So thank you for helping me make this shorter. I did send a letter to the school board, an email to the school board with the help of our superintendent, just to try to speak to what I was hearing. This is the first time that I've actually had the opportunity to hear from anybody who had an issue with the signs. I knew that it was an issue because administrators let us know that that individuals were not okay with them. And so trying to figure out what the situation was, I requested if I could have a meeting with them, and administrators tried, and that didn't occur. So, so this is the first time I'm kind of getting to understand the issue fully, and I agree with everyone who has spoken to the benefits of safe space signs and the risk that our LGBTQ youth are put in. I wanted you guys to have that background. I thought maybe because I know that Facebook can get crazy and things are said, and I would say part of that is maybe because people didn't really know what had been occurring. So I did want to just bring the sign that people are frustrated with at the elementary. So that's the sign. And I will say, just I've been in the district now for 10 years. I have always had some form of a safe space signal out. And this is the first time I've ever encountered a concern. So I wanted to let that know. I'm fearful that school policies might be tried to be pushed in a direction that would be a direct violation of my ethical standards as a school counselor. I have pretty clear ethical code that I go by, and so do the teachers. And you can Google either of those. ASCA is the American School Counselor Association, so if you want to look that up, you can. So I'm worried that they could infringe on my professional rights as a school counselor. I worry about our families that do not fit into their moral standards and the abilities for those families to feel welcome and included in our buildings, at our events. I also think that it has to be said that claiming that myself or other teachers are encouraging students to be gay or question their sexual identity, if that's what's happened, because I'm still not entirely sure on that, they're lying. I would hope that with such inflammatory claims that they have more evidence than simple wall decorations.
Amanda, you're at 3 minutes.
Okay. And the letter I sent to the school board is really long, so it definitely couldn't all fit in there. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Thank
you. Aaron Ernest.
I'll be honest, I thought that was a sign-in sheet. But I love this community, and I love the parents that I work with and the students that I work with. I work really hard to make connections with student families. They really matter. And if the sign that says, "Be safe, you're welcome here," our school expectations say safe, responsible, respectful. And if we take them down, I'm afraid that someone who did feel safe and welcome will get the opposite of that. They'll feel the opposite of that.
Tom Schultz.
I just want to say, if you did sign it and you don't want to speak, that's okay. You don't have to come on.
Thank you.
You said Tom Schmitz. He sent a letter. I think I wrote his name wrong. He sent a letter and asked me to read it. Would that be okay?
Yes.
It's very short. It's Schmitz. Sorry, I forgot his name when I signed it in. I never met him. He just sent me the letter. So my name is Tom Schmitz. I've called the Hills my residence for nearly 30 years, and I've had my home a few miles south of here for nearly 20 years. My grandfather was born in Lead, and his father came here before Deadwood was a town. My roots are deep in this community, and I'm concerned with the environment in which children are being taught here. Although I don't have children in school, it's come to my attention that there are efforts underway to make LGBT students feel less than welcome. Just as concerning, I've learned that the staff who are trying to create an inclusive space for all children are having their efforts thwarted. If it is true that signage designed to make students feel welcome and safe is asked to be taken down for whatever reason, it makes me very sad and angry to contemplate how the action of those signs being taken down might make kids feel. I fully understand that some members of our community are concerned with the absurd idea that somehow children are being indoctrinated into a deviant lifestyle simply by virtue of allowing LGBT kids to live their lives openly. I submit that while your role is to respectfully listen to all members of the community, you must not allow those bigoted and fearful ideas to influence policy in a way that puts children's lives at risk. Please think about how a child who is already living in a state where the governor has made it clear she believes their nature is deviant must feel to see their school a place where they should feel safe, taking steps to marginalize them. Then think about how that child's feelings may lead them to self-harm. In case you're not aware, LGBT kids are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their peers. And please clearly understand that LGBT kids that attempt suicide are not doing so because they are inherently more prone to suicide risk, because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. No, the fact is that suicide risk is higher for those kids because of how they are mistreated and stigmatized in society. Frankly, it's horrific to imagine that an educational institution would take steps to farther marginalize these vulnerable kids. No reason justifies it. Please instead take steps to make the Lead-Deadwood School District a place where all kids are made to feel safe. Thank you for taking my comments into consideration.
Hello, my name is Karen Keene. I'm a Deadwood resident, a parent, and a former educator. I'm also a numbers person, but you've heard a lot of numbers very well, so I'm not going to go into that. What I'm going to say is my oldest son was 13 when his best friend committed suicide. She was a beautiful girl. She was an excellent student. She was an amazing girl. She was just so fun-loving. And I just only recently found out 20 years later why. She was questioning her sexuality. She hadn't made any decisions. She was scared. She was unsure of what was happening. In this time frame in Idaho, she had nowhere to go. Her parents were going through a divorce. She didn't want to bring any more conflict to their situation. So she decided to go to her girlfriends. And they immediately ostracized her, they bullied her, they abandoned her. She had no place safe to go into school to talk to her counselor. She didn't know if the same thing would happen there, if she would be ostracized and again abandoned. And so she chose to take the easy way out in her opinion, and she hung herself 2 days later. There's nothing worse than going to a child's funeral who has committed suicide. All of the children were gathered around her casket in the cemetery, and all of our parents shook with fear, watching our children throughout the nights to see if this would domino effect. This child had nowhere to go. Please don't let it happen to another child.
Kayla Klein.
Hello, my name is Kayla Klein. I'm a Lead resident and I'm also a Lead City Commissioner. Madam Chair, members of the board, I appreciate your time you're giving everyone tonight, so thank you for that. I won't reiterate what many people before me have said in regards to safe space. I appreciate everything that they've brought. A couple things I would just add to this is that one assumption is being made that every child has a typical one or dual parent household. A lot of times that's not true for kids in our district. And so I would just, I do understand and appreciate what Mr. Johns has said in having a policy. But if you are going to consider a policy, I would urge you to consider that if a child does not have a support system, if they are living in poverty, if they're homeless, if they don't have parents, who else are they supposed to turn to besides the people that they trust and love in their school system? I believe we do all want what's best for the children in our school, and I appreciate that. I believe that parents want and should be the first and most important teacher for their children. And I want to do that for my boys. I just hope that every other child has the same opportunity. Thank you.
Jeremy Olson.
Jeremy Olson, Lead resident. I have 2 daughters in this school system. Thank the board for letting me speak. Start out with, I come from a different area than most of you guys come from. I listened to my mother talk about having crosses burned on her front yard as a child. It's one of those things that doesn't leave you very fast. She was raised in New Orleans. She's Jewish. So she had 2 strikes against her on that one right there. She's darker skinned, she is not black, she is actually Russian. Another strike. When we moved to our hometown, it was a policy there for many years that if you were of color, you were driven out of town until like 1980. I don't see that around here, hopefully, but this town is very similar, which is very sad in some ways. This resolution that is being discussed, maybe we'll talk about LGBTQ, bullying. Bullying is an issue here. I've had a conversation before with people here about that. But if this resolution is passed, then it opens a floodgate of other issues. So we're going to stop certain signs, right? Let's take down every single reference to God in school. Let's make sure that every single person does not wear a cross. I am not Jewish, I am not Christian, I do not practice faith. That's my background. Some of you guys know it, not everybody does. So, I walk in there, now I am offended. How does that affect everybody else? So, we put this in writing, there is a floodgate now. There's always has been floodgates when you put stuff in writing. These are things to think about. These are things to understand that once this happens, if it does happen, there may be a larger problem in the future. So, thank you.
Sarah Hannah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hannah. I live in Lead. A lot of things that I wanted to say have already been touched on. I guess my thought is like that high school is already hard enough. Middle school, school in general is already hard enough. It was hard for me, and I'm a straight white woman. I mean, I can't imagine how hard it would be for someone of color, someone that's gay. If we're not going to offer these safe space signs, these safe space options, then give us another option to offer. If you don't like this, then what else can we do? Because we have to do something. I think it's clear that we have to do something. We have to offer something to make sure that kids are safe. I'm not going to go into the background or the details of my family because I don't feel like it's anyone's business. But I'm going to tell you that there's a pretty regular amount of the time that one of my children gets bullied and comments are made, and she's a very passive kid and she just blows it off and she seems fine, but one day she's not gonna be fine, and that's what I worry about. So I need to make sure she is. As far as the elementary school, 95% of the kids that saw those signs probably had no idea what it meant. But the 5% that did know what it meant, they needed it, they needed to see it, they needed to feel safe. So why can't we offer that for those kids? Because I'm raising 2 girls right now and they're oblivious to most things going on around them, unless it directly affects them. So the kids that it doesn't directly affect aren't paying a lot of attention to it. But the kids that need to see it, they notice it and they need to see it. I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. I'm not saying you have to agree with me. I'm just saying you have to be tolerant of things that don't align directly with decisions that you make. Someone is allowed to make a different decision than you make, and you don't get to be mean because of that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Hess, and board, I just want to thank you for listening to this. I didn't prepare nothing, I just wanted to say, just consider, I believe you need to do some kind of policy because you need to be able to make it so you're not just focusing on one group or a couple groups. It needs to be a safe place for all kids. And so by keeping things neutral, it doesn't, you know, from my personal experience with my own kids, because it wasn't neutral, they didn't feel that they could go and talk to certain people or they already thought, oh, this is already one-sided or wouldn't be open to one opinion. So I just encourage you to consider the policy and that it's open and it's going to cover and protect all kids, no matter what their background, no matter what their color, no matter what. But by focusing on one group, you're not excluding another group. So I just encourage you to really look at this policy and make sure it keeps the school neutral so that no matter what the kid's going through, we got to think about the kids and what they're dealing with and cover the whole basis that they're all feeling safe. Thank you.
I'm Courtney Pierce. I teach at the high school. There's been a lot of talk about teachers just sticking to the curriculum. Teachers and students, weirdly enough, are not automatons. We actually do have beliefs and values and thoughts and feelings. And while I do not voice outwardly like who I voted for or exactly how I think and feel on a daily basis, it doesn't take my students very long to figure it out when I tell my students to stop saying the R slur or the F slur or the N slur in my classroom. My students quickly figure out that I might lean a specific way on the spectrum. I also have colors in my room. I also treat all of my students with respect and care and love, even the ones I know I don't agree with, because they all deserve it, no matter who their parents voted for, or if I just got done telling them to stop saying the R word. I care about all of them because they're all still children, even the ones who did just turn 18. They're all still children and they all still deserve my care and love and support. And they all know that they have it. Even if I had a rainbow colored "you are welcome" or "you are safe" room or sign in my room. I know this because they all come to me. My room has been a safe space for students to come to tell me. Of all shapes, sizes, and colors, these students come to me with their problems. And I welcome them because that's what good teachers do. Because good teachers will welcome you no matter who you are or what you believe. And I think we should just keep it that way. So if you have to make a policy because someone tells you you have to make a policy, let that policy be. Don't let other people bully you into making a policy say we can't have signs.
Hello, my name is Rayleigh Williams. I'm a freshman at LDH High currently. Thank you all for allowing me to speak today. First, I would like to go over a little bit of my backstory. So I am a strong Christian. I grew up in a Christian home, and I have a strong belief in God. The reason I think that this is important to mention is because the controversial issues that I am subjected to fairly often in our school district discourages me quite often. When I, a Christian, go into a classroom in which I am made well aware of a teacher's standings on these subjects, it makes me feel as though I'll be judged or hated for even mentioning my beliefs. School is a place in which children are to learn and gain an education, and other students like me cannot do so when we are subjected to a teacher's beliefs and standings on controversial topics, or when we feel unsafe and or uncomfortable in our learning environment. If teachers aren't allowed to post Christian or conservative materials in their classroom or initiate prayer with a student, then they should also not be allowed to put up LGBTQ or other controversial materials in their classroom or initiate a talk about the subject with a student, unless they do so privately and the student initiates this talk. I believe that a teacher has every right to practice their beliefs in their personal life outside of school, but they should not be allowed to make school a political war zone. All I'm saying is that we should make school a neutral place where children can learn more easily and feel safe and comfortable in their environment. Because quite honestly, after doing this, I'm not sure that I will feel safe. I'm fairly certain that I will be called names and that I will be hated by both teachers and students, like my brother was when he was in this school, for voicing the same beliefs that I am. Thank you.
Angie Foster.
Hi, I'm Angie Foster. I'm extremely nervous if you can't tell. I'm coming as a parent of a former student who I pulled from the school district, and also a parent of whose students are still in the school district. I don't know how many of you, I appreciate the statistics on suicide so much, because my son could have been one of those statistics. I'm presenting, I guess, more the aspect of labels, and why there has to be labels. And I know that I'm living in a fantasy world that may never exist. But why does there have to be labels? No matter what. My son was on the opposite side of that, bullying. His friend group was, I'm sorry, I'm shaking. His friend group was identified as LGBTQ, and he loved them because that's what we raised our kids to do, is to accept all, to love all. Our home is open to anyone and all. My first son, when he came home from school in first grade, he said, "Mom, what's a Native American?" And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because my teacher thought it was really cool that my best friend was a Native American when I was white." And it broke my heart. I'm like, I don't want you to see anyone any different than yourself. We are all the same. We are humans. We love. Back to my youngest son that we pulled from the school district. He was bullied so bad. He was told he was transgender for months after months after months. By a group that was supposed to be his best friends. By a group that was supposed to love him and accept him. This went on for a very, very long time. And one day when I came home, he said, "I can't take it anymore, Mom, I can't." He said, "They keep putting pudding in my face, and I won't tell you the inappropriate things that were said to him because my face will turn red." He said, "I can't take it anymore. I feel dead inside, and I don't want to live. I'm done. I can't do this anymore." And so for us as parents, we felt like we didn't have a choice but to pull him because there was no protection for him. And I asked him, I said, "Can you talk to somebody? Can you reach out to somebody?" And he said, "I can, but I feel like they're not going to understand because they support them too." And I don't want to say that because it's so hard for me, because I've worked alongside of so many of you as a mental health therapist for family and children. And I know your hearts. I know it. I know you teachers, and I know your hearts, and I know that you're there for the kids. My heart is, why does there have to be labels? Why does it have to be Native American? Why does it have to be white? Why does it have to be ADHD? Why does it have to be LGBT? Why does it have to be straight? Why does it have to be gay? Why can't it just be all are welcome, all are safe, all are loved, all are educated? That's what I don't understand. So to me, it's not about the sign that says all are safe. It's the representation of what's on the sign that limits it to one category, that limits it to one category of students. Really, that's all I just wanted to say. And I thank you so much, board, for giving the community this opportunity. I've never been to a school board meeting, and I thank you all so much, and I thank you for what you're doing for our students.
Matt Danson. I'm a lead resident and a concerned parent of a LGBTQ student. Sorry, most of what I had prepared has already been said far more eloquently than I probably could. So instead, I'm going to tell you about her last school. Her last school is a lot like what it sounds like this policy is moving towards. And at that point in time, she was 11 years old. That age where you start to notice other people. And when all her other friends started noticing boys, she told us that she felt that way about girls. And raising her as we have no issue with that. We encourage her to be whoever she is. The problem was the school. The school had policies like this in place. The school had no safe spaces. In that school, she was bullied. She was ridiculed by all the people she thought were her friends. She had nowhere to go. There wasn't any teachers that let her know that she was safe with them. Eventually it got so bad, the principal called us and said that her sexuality was a problem that needed to be resolved at home. Sickening. And we moved here. This is her first year in this school. One of the things she constantly says is how safe she feels here, how open she can be, how she's not afraid to be herself. She knows if she's in trouble and ends up in a bad situation, there are teachers who are there to help her. There are people she knows she can trust and turn to. And this policy, stands to take that away from her. And it's already hard enough for a kid, and then to realize they're different, and then to take away the only safety they feel like they have. I guess that's all I have. Thanks for hearing me.
Jackson, I'm not sure what the last name is. Jackson's here.
Sorry. I'll be next. I just came over. My name is Jackson Cheney, and technically I'm not even from here. I'm a Stevens graduate of 2021, so just last year. But I felt like this was an important topic to talk about. In my high school, bullying was rampant. I am an LGBT youth, and I was bullied. There were many times I considered I shouldn't even be alive because of who I am, and no student should feel like that. And it took until the last month of my senior year to finally feel like I belonged, and that's because I started a club at Stevens High School, and it's not LGBT only. We made that very clear. It's called the Plus Club, and it is a safe place for anyone. It's not meant to be divisive. It's meant so anyone feels safe, just like these safe space flyers I see. And I think that's very important for that space to be here. I prepared absolutely nothing, and I'm sorry, I just kind of winged it, But I felt like, even though I'm not from here, even though I'm not a student anymore, I felt like that was important, and people should realize that. Thank you.
Sadie Young.
Hi, I'm actually not Sadie Young. She was going to read my statement, but then had to leave, so I'm going to read my own statement, even though I don't like talking in front of people. Bigotry.
State your name.
Virginia Roy.
Virginia.
Like the state, and Roy, R-O-Y. Bigotry masked as concern is common in western South Dakota. I've lived here as a brown bisexual woman since I was 12 years old. There is no minority or LGBTQ plus person that will tell you any different, that it can be really hard to live here and be judged. The GLAD Club at the time was a big outlet for me and a huge part of how I felt safe and how I felt I could go eat and not eat in a bathroom or a stairwell, which is where I ate before the club was founded at the time. My daughter's in the 5th grade. She made the mistake of telling the wrong kid that she's a lesbian when she was 11 years old. She was bullied relentlessly at that point, and was called the F word that rhymes with maggot on the bus the 5th day after coming out. She was afraid to ride the bus. She didn't feel safe, and it was a teacher who let her come into his classroom and feel safe in that space. And I cannot understand why you would want to not make those places easily accessible. It wasn't a teacher in her grade. It wasn't even a teacher in the first wing she had to go into. But she was able to identify him. I don't know if the sign was apart, but she was able to identify him as a safe adult to talk to and spend her lunch in his classroom with 2 of her friends. We would like to feel that everyone, there was a lot of statements about feeling like everyone is welcome and not liking labels. They might not be necessary, but if you're someone that fits into one of those labels, you're going to be called them anyway. And if we want to make it safe for everyone, then we need to make sure that these spaces are preserved and easily identifiable for children. That's everything I have.
JC Beagle?
I thought I was gonna get this out when you cried. So thanks for starting it off. I'm JC Beagle. I graduated from Lead-Deadwood High School in 2012. I'm sorry that you have to listen to me blubber while I say this. I am gay. Good news. I'm not going to pressure any of you into being gay tonight, though. It will take a lot more than 3 minutes, trust me. I can tell you that I am alive today because of my family and my friends who I made in high school. My best friend in high school just so happened to also be gay. I really don't want to see this this school district move backwards. I think it's really important to have these signs up. I just completed my student teaching, where I will not mention, it is beside the point. I am also 28 years old, and outside of, I would say 95% of the classrooms at the elementary school and the high school that I completed them at, my student teaching experiences, there were safe space signs. And I can tell you at 28 years old, after being out for 10 years, I was able to take a deep breath and know that the teachers that I was going to be learning from and hopefully working with one day supported me and supported students like me. To the board, please don't, take away teachers' rights to support their students. Thank you.
So, thank you. Much has been made about these safe space signs and the importance of letting LGBTQ youth know that they have a safe space to go. I agree. They need to have a safe space to go. All kids need to be shown love and acceptance. I'm so glad Riley spoke. Riley, not sure. I'm so glad you spoke because this is my point. Openly Christian youth are also bullied and teased. We're called prudes. We're called bigots. Anytime we dare open our mouth to say the letters LGBTQ. And so can teachers if we keep these safe space zones, and I understand the reason for them completely, but can teachers also put out signs that let kids know it's safe to go ask a teacher for prayer? If my daughter can go to a safe zone teacher to discuss LGBTQ issues without my knowledge to a teacher who may or may not explain it to her in the way that is in accordance with our family beliefs, then my daughter should also be able to identify a Christian teacher who she can pray with to get through the very same bullying issues that LGBTQ youth have to go through. Without fear of repercussion. Nothing in this policy says kids cannot talk to a trusted counselor or teacher. I feel like that might be something that's been lost. The signs, fine, but make it equal for all. And I guess, let's see here. I have a question because I was not aware that this was even an issue at the elementary school. I have a 4th grader, and I would like to know if my 4th grader goes to a teacher at the elementary school level and says, "What does that rainbow mean?" How is it going to be explained to her? Because that's my job as a parent, not yours. And I understand that not all kids have the benefit of a 2-parent household, but we do. And that's my daughter.
Wendy, you have 3 minutes.
Sorry, can I
That's okay.
just
Yeah,
one more thing. Also, and I don't mean for this to be a threat or anything, but I've been doing some research lately, and there are all kinds of lawsuits across the country. Parents bringing lawsuits to school districts because they claim that their child was pushed to have a gender identity issue or whatever. This is their claim. These are the lawsuits. You can Google them. Okay, and whether they're true or not, no matter how the courts decide, I guess I kind of see this kind of policy as a way that the school district can protect themselves from that kind of litigation, because there's nothing saying that it would never come to Lead-Deadwood. Thank you.
Joseph Cosell.
Thank you. I just make a few comments. There's been so many great comments here already. I'm Joe Cosell. I'm a member of the school district, member of the community. I love this community. I love it more after everything I've heard today, most everything I've heard today. But I'm glad that we finally got really real recently here. I'm sorry for the board. It looks like our small town's not immune to needless, devastating culture wars anymore. Here we are. And I want to, every day I leave my house, I encounter behaviors and ideas that I reject personally. But that's the nature of living in an open society, and that's what you educate about. Interestingly, we wouldn't even be here, I don't think. You wouldn't even be working so hard on doing a policy or having any of this if 2 educators hadn't been triggered by colors. And instead of going to the superintendent, let's complain to the lieutenant governor and the administration. The same administration that forced every school in this state to put God up in their schools. When you talk about the First Amendment, the first speaker talked about the First Amendment, and she read out the whole thing. Well, when you look at it, she talked about free exercise. You're free to exercise your religion 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on your own time and at yourself. But you can't establish religion either. That's also part of the First Amendment. And I think it's a shallow version of religion that is trying to be established here on a state entity, and that's what school is. When you look at this, I wasn't even going to be here today. I got this from a friend of mine last night. I couldn't believe it. That is what triggered people. This is a safe space and all are welcome here. Unbelievable. And then when you hear it today, this is a perfect way to start your government class about equal protection. That would be exhibit number 1 right there. There are also plenty of educational and professional opportunities to teach at home or in religious institutions if that's the way that you want to do that. We're free to do that in this country, or to send your children there as well. But we're not free to make sure that our schools match our prejudicial philosophies, each one of us. It has to be open. When you look at this small, close-knit community, I'm so sad that we're here and that we're having to talk about this, but it's honest. You see it throughout the community. This is not just this issue, it's everything. It's Christian nationalist fascism, and you gotta watch it. And that's what the triggering is all about. The educators here, read your Bible. It's a New Testament. That means that the Old Testament is gone. It's a new covenant. We don't use Leviticus as a guide stone anymore. Now it's about forgiveness, acceptance, and above all, love of one another. I think you could join in on that. Perhaps your teachers missed that part. And then I think it's vital that every parent here let people know how this started, why you guys are all here, who brought this up and why they brought it up. It's a very political thing, and you know it.
Joe, you're at
Yes.
3 minutes.
Thank you. Last thing I'll say is this: if you disagree with me, your faith requires that you forgive me.
We have one final speaker, Garrett Kohler.
Howdy. My name is Garrett. I'll try to make this quick. I just want to commend the freshmen for coming up and speaking. It was probably very difficult for you to do that, so good work. I don't know if I can follow up JC, but that was really great work too. I'm a mental health counselor. I need to clarify that I'm not here to represent Black Hills State University, but that's where I work. I'm the counselor there. Some of you may also recognize me. I used to be the director of the Boys and Girls Club here in Lead-Deadwood. That was a very great job of mine. I'd love to be back there, but that's an argument for a different day. But I used to be a Lead-Deadwood student too. I graduated here in 2010. I don't identify as being gay, but I'm a straight white man. But I dealt with stuff here in the high school as well. I was ostracized for being dumb. I wasn't going to graduate. I wasn't going to do anything. I was told by teachers that I should go down to a lower English class because I wasn't smart enough. Now I have a master's degree, so we'll go with that. But to me, this seems to be a topic of empathy. And if you don't know what empathy is, then you should do some research on what that means. It means putting yourself into somebody else's shoes and understanding what that means, and to be them. And I think having acceptance and being appreciative of people for who they are is incredibly important. And I would just say, I guess my suggestion for the board would be that if you don't want to allow teachers to hang pro-rights and LGBTQ stuff in their classroom, then you need to find a space and provide that within your school district. Because whether you like it or not, these are real issues. I saw them as the director of the Boys and Girls Club. I talked to many of your students on a daily basis about the struggles that they dealt with at your school, and they're not going away. They're there. Students absolutely are thinking about suicide within your school district because they don't feel safe at your school. So that's fine. To me, it's fine that if you want to make it across the board where teachers can't support their rights and their beliefs within the classroom, I think that's fair. But then you need to create a space within your school where students feel like they can be accepted there. That's kind of all I got.
Well, that wraps up all of our speakers for tonight. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Kathy Yergin. I own Wandering Minds down the road. I am not going to address specifically any label of anyone here. I'm going to address my son's story, and it's very hard because I don't want you to judge him, okay? He struggles in school. He has ADHD. He's pretty much checked out, not by the lack of effort from teachers or anyone, but by a lot of bullying and stuff he experiences at school. My son was so checked out that he actually was so angry, he said something that really terrified a lot of people here. And I don't want it to come to that, because I now as a parent live on eggshells wondering if my son is going to lose his mind. He mentioned school shooting. He didn't mean it, but it was enough to terrorize a lot of people here. And it was because he gets called a retard all the time. He gets treated like he's dumb. His friends that he grew up with and was able to sit and have lunch with now ostracizing him because they see him as different. It's not okay. And having people that he could talk to, teachers that he could talk to, had kind of helped. And it was so nice to see that there were teachers that even though he said things that he shouldn't say, that they knew him. They took the time to get close to him and understand him and just basically say, you're an idiot. You shouldn't have said that. You know, and thank you. Thank you. I just think it's important for kids to be able to know they can talk to their teachers, speak to them, show them how hard it really is, because some don't react just to themselves. Some might say dumb things and something really bad could happen. Not just, I'm not saying that self-harm isn't something bad. I'm saying, you know, it's important. And I sat there debating on whether or not I really want to share this with you, because I know a lot of you know who my son is, and he is a good kid. He just doesn't know where his place is here sometimes with other people, and we need to make sure that kids can feel like they can talk to people. Because I know as adults, a lot of us have been there too, you know, we've been there, and it's nice to know that we can share that with them. And just like this young freshman who talked to us about Christianity too, to know that they also, now we need to make sure that we are willing to listen to them too, you know, that it's not just LGBTQ or racism or any other disabilities or anything. It's a bunch of everything, and to know that that's what that rainbow should mean, and that's what it means to everybody, that it's not just a representation of that it means everyone. And that's what our community is. Thank you.
I really want to thank all of you for your comments, for being willing to stand up and speak, and mostly for remaining civil and having a good conversation, and giving us very good input and a lot of stuff to think about. So with that, we'll move on. We have some correspondence in our Dropbox. We have a thank you from the family of Bonnie Rainey, a thank you from Deb Williams, and a thank you from the high school staff. And under administrator reports, we will turn that over to Dr. Pearson for his superintendent report.
I don't have much to report because it seems like what we just talked about has been consuming all of my time. So I just want to say though, I appreciate, I appreciate how this went. I know there were a lot of heartfelt sentiments shared on both sides of the issue. And I had nightmares about how badly this could go. And, you know, not to get political, but as flawed as our country is, I think it's the greatest place in the world. We have the ability to disagree and express ourselves. So, yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts and being so. I guess that's all I have.
Okay. I will turn it over to the building principals. I don't know if you guys have anything to report on.
No, this time.